All right, welcome in a 7-7. You 7-7 guys. It's Sean Collins. We'll find out later. I'm Louie Rabaut. Thanks for hanging out with us here on another edition of BloodHorse Monday, a post-Indiana Derby BloodHorse Monday. When we think about this time of year, it's not Saratoga opening. It's not the Haskell. We think about the Indiana Oaks. You understand me?
Well, you and I might.
You and I do.
I don't know. I've been thinking about the Haskell for a couple of weeks now, so I don't know about that one. But
nominations out for that one for sure. Obviously, we'll spend a lot of time next week talking about that one. You and I will both be in New Jersey for that one.
Wouldn't miss it. This will be my 11th one.
I was going to say, now that I've been, I know better than to miss those things. And so, yes, we'll be at the Haskell next week. Certainly, you moved to Saratoga after this show.
Yeah, I'm going to be up there for the whole summer, except for when I'm at the Haskell, and you're taking a week at the beach.
Literally wrapping this show today and then finishing up your packing and getting in the car. And
finish up the packing. I think you mean start the packing.
That's the same thing for men. It's the same thing. We start, but also we finish. There's no like 2 days of packing. It's just finished.
I know. All I need is like a good half hour before I go to bed tonight.
Exactly
I'll convince myself probably to leave it until 4 o'clock in the morning tomorrow when I wake up to start the drive.
Yep, that's it.
So I'll probably end up doing it at that point. I'll realize about 5 hours in that I forgot something. I'll go, oh, well. And hopefully I can. Well, the good thing is, I'm going to be, staying somewhere where I can buy stuff and keep stuff. I'm driving, so I don't have to worry about fitting everything in on the plane if I do forget anything.
There you go. Yeah. The late great Mitch Hedberg, the comedian, said once that he loves traveling and being in hotel rooms, and once in a while he'll come up with a great idea for a joke, but then he'll realize across the room is the pen and paper, and so he has a decision to make. Does he get out of bed or does he convince himself it's not a funny joke? Right? That's the great line there. This is men. Oh no, I can just pack in the morning. Yeah. I can just pack in the morning. I don't need to plan my trips here. This is ridiculous. I'll pack in the morning. So you're off to Saratoga. We were up there at Horseshoe this past weekend, but certainly the headlines this past weekend are probably at Saratoga in the fact that Nitrogen loses to a track record. We saw track records sort of all over the
track records all over the country this past weekend, especially on Saturday. I think we had them on the East Coast. We had a bunch of them at Indianapolis,
right?
And then out there on the West Coast in the Great Lady M Stakes, they were going fast this weekend. That's for sure. They must have known it was the 4th of July, trying to compete with Joey Chestnut,
something like that. The great thing that happened too. You mentioned Sweet Azteca setting the track record at Los Alamitos, beating Copian, making her look like a second-class sprinter, frankly, is
if second-class sprinters had to go 10 wide on the far turn.
Well, that far too. It was a very strange end of that race. I'm with you. But just more and more depth in these older horse categories over and over and over again. It's been such a delight of this year is how good these older groups are. We see that Grade 1 Churchill Downs, all the horses come out of that and win immediately.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a Sweet Aztec and a Copian out west as well in that sprint division. It feels deep. And I have great news for everyone listening today. First ever Mid-Season Eclipse Awards. So we are going to go through the first 6 months, a little bit plus, of the year and include this last weekend's races with our friend Steve Kornacki from NBC Sports. He'll join us in just a couple of minutes. But Fionn gets it done.
Mm-hmm.
And that class is really interesting all of a sudden because Nitrogen got pushed by 2 different fillies in that race. Frankly, we almost had a 19-1 upset in that one, which I was rooting for in the cross country pick 5. But
you didn't win enough at Indianapolis this weekend.
I did win enough. I love that place. All of us have the track, right? Where we bet, and for some reason that weekend feels like we always hit, right?
Yes.
That's Horseshoe Indianapolis for me. Indiana Derby weekend. Last year was the Haskell. Hopefully we do that again.
Hopefully.
A little middle pick 5, a little late pick 4.
Share me your pick 4s and pick 5s.
We'll get smoking last year. How about that? A little Fernando.
Oh, yeah. He paid nice. That was nice. That was a nice hit.
10-1 for Louie. A little single in both the pick 5 and the pick 4. Anyways, but we get that Fionn effort. Nitrogen, though, that didn't hurt my impression of her at all. If you lose to a track record by less than a length or a head or whatever,
it was a nose, probably.
Yeah, right. That probably.
She pretty much set a track record herself.
I'm not going to hold it against her.
Yeah, I'm not going to hold that against her. I still think she's the class of this division. And, she got tested throughout the race. She still ran very well. And, good horses get beat every once in a while. This was one of those scenarios. Fionn's no slouch. We saw her win on Stephen Foster Preview Day out here in Churchill Downs in the Regret Stakes. She's a good high-class filly herself, and she was able to run down Nitrogen in this spot. I'm excited to see. It sounds like Nitrogen is going to stick on the plan of switching to the dirt for the Alabama Stakes, so I'm very excited to see that. That'll probably give Fionn a good opportunity, whether they go Saratoga Oaks or whether they end up at Kentucky Downs at the end of August. A good opportunity for her to pick up another win, and hopefully we'll see them meet up again somewhere like the Queen Elizabeth II Challenge Cup down the line, potentially, or a Breeders' Cup. We'll have to wait and see.
Trainer Brad Cox, been on the show, said that they will train backward from the QE2 challenge there at Keeneland with Fionn, who did set the track record. Obviously, Nitrogen, nothing to apologize. In her effort, we see Magnitude win the listed Iowa Derby, but he did it in style again. Yes. Do we make much of it? Was there much to do? Here's what I'll say about it. I'm very glad to see that a horse that I think in previous generations would have had to have been retired, come back that well. Yes. Right? Just flying down the lane that way. I thought he looked like what we wanted to see out of a horse coming off a layoff, off of an injury like that. So I'll be positive that way. I hope they don't push him into a spot where he's not ready yet, like up to Saratoga or something like that. If he isn't ready, Ellis Park Derby's still a $250,000 race, right? I mean, there are spots for him to land.
Pennsylvania Derby is a
ahead
good
of the
option.
Pennsylvania Derby.
Yep.
That's exactly
Pennsylvania
right.
Derby's a good option to steal grade 1 while Sovereignty and Journalism Baeza are probably sitting out. But, I'm interested to see what his year turns into, because I think when he won the Risen Star, the immediate day after, everybody was looking at it as, well, he kind of got everything his own way. East Avenue didn't run the way he should have. Built's probably distance limited. Right. So no surprise he won by 9 and something likes. And then he gets injured. And then once he gets injured and he's off the Derby trail, it started to turn into, oh, well, if Magnitude was here, things might be different. And it's like, it just seemed like the narrative switched because of the fact that he was gone. He won by a lot. He looked very impressive at Iowa. He still looks like a horse who still has a little bit to learn, which is understandable for a horse that, is in the middle of his 3-year-old season. And he won by a lot. I don't think he really beat much. I'm not going to put too much into that when he jump. I'm sure there are going to be people that do when he jumps in against the big dogs again later in the year. But he's one that, I'm interested to see what he ends up doing for the remainder of the year. I think this would be a great horse on a path, like you mentioned. Go to the Ellis Park Derby next, then maybe take your shot at a grade 1 in the Pennsylvania Derby. Absolutely. And then look at a race like the Clark. And so, don't rush into the Breeders' Cup. Don't try the Dirt Mile or something like that. Sit out, wait for the Clark, see if you can pair that with the Pegasus, and then go forward into the big grade 1s for the older horses throughout his 4-year-old season. I think that'd be a good path for him, and I feel like that'd be a great chance at success for him.
In 2024, we had Nysos, Robert B. Lewis, breakout. Yep. We all went, oh my gosh, here's our Derby horse. We see Magnitude in the Risen Star this year, needs the time off. Good news here is we didn't need to wait 13 months to see him again, right? And
that is very good, yes.
Seriously, these are strides that I think we take for granted at this point, is that a horse like that can come back as quickly as he has, as well as he has in this spot. So it was really, really great to see. You mentioned all those track records being broken in both the grade 3 Indiana Oaks and Derby. Clicquot wins there. I saw Brendan Walsh right after the race, and all I said to him was, and you were there in the winner's circle as well, she is really professional. Yeah. She was not affected by people, by photos. She was doing her, I think she could have gone 10 furlongs there that day, been totally fine, was not breathing hard when she was in the winner's circle. I was very impressed with her. Of all the horses I saw this weekend, I'm most excited to see where she goes next. I'm not going to lie. I think she's that professional.
Yeah. When we're looking at the upside of horses, between her and Tip Top Thomas, I do really think that this could be a filly that could jump in against the Good Cheers, the Nitrogens, the Immersives, and see what she has against this group. Brendan's got a good group of 3-year-olds this year between on the boys' side, Gosger and East Avenue.
Yep, no question.
And I'm excited to see where she can fit. This was a good kind of unveiling race for her. Yeah. See what we have. It seemed like she handled those fillies with ease. There were some good fillies in there, and she handled them with ease. And I think it's bigger and better for her going forward.
Here, but you mentioned Tip Top was obviously winning the grade 3 Oaks, or it's your grade 3 Indiana Derby in this spot as well. Breaks the track record at Horseshoe. Johnny V flies in, does Johnny V things on Saturday as well. What do you think the ceiling is for a horse like Tip Top Thomas?
Now, he's one that got forgotten about, I feel like, throughout the spring. He comes out in his debut, wins that, and I believe it was a pretty close race between the top 3 finishers there, if I'm remembering correctly. I was at that one. Who was 4th in that race?
I'm trying to remember. It starts with an S. I can't remember.
Sovereignty. Some horse named Sovereignty, was 4th in that race. So he got off. He beat a very good maiden field. And then he comes back, runs 2nd in the Champagne, and disappears for a couple months, pops back up, put the allowance win together last time out, comes out, now gets his graded stakes win. Right. It sounds like, from what I've heard, from Todd Pletcher telling our good friend Ginny Reese, it doesn't sound like they're really thinking anything Travers wise with him. He doesn't look like that 1.25 mile horse. I agree. From what I've seen so far, but this could be a really good horse in that, maybe 7 furlong to 1.125 mile range going forward. He seems like a type of horse that can progress off of this in those
yeah.
types of spots. And I'm excited to see what he has going forward. Cole Battle's no slouch. And
Oh,
Cole
I
Battle
was
gave him
very
everything he
impressed.
could handle in
Yes,
the stretch.
very
And shout
impressed.
out to Cole Battle. He ran a great race in there as well. The track was playing speed favoring all day. If it was maybe a little bit more of a fair track, maybe Cole Battle gets by him. I don't know if that would have been the difference maker or not. But
well, like Nitrogen, Cole Battle just lost to a track record.
yeah,
I mean,
so you can't
at what
be
point are we
ashamed in that.
holding? Yeah, that's exactly right. I wonder with Cole Battle if he doesn't get like a month off here. No, they take 7-8 weeks, something like that.
They're looking at the Ellis Park Derby. I know that was kind of their goal.
Too.
That was actually more of a goal for them than the Indiana Derby from when I talked to them about a week or two ago. So I wouldn't be shocked to see him end up in the Ellis Park Derby. And then maybe you look at something like the Pennsylvania Derby, or is the Oklahoma Derby still that weekend as the Pennsylvania Derby? I feel like that might have got moved this year.
I don't remember off the top.
Yeah, but I think one of those two would be a decent spot for him to end up as well. And then I would think maybe give him a little freshening at that point in the fall. I think,
just a cool horse.
Get a couple months and
honest
come
effort
back.
every time. I mean, Cole Battle's really
come back in Louisiana for like that Louisiana Stakes in January. Like hit that older horse trail in there next year. That's what I would do.
Yeah, running the fairgrounds or something like that. All right. Well, we did promise you Mid-Season Eclipse Awards, and we're happy to welcome in Steve Kornacki from NBC. Joins us here on BloodHorse Monday. There's Steve. All right, look at him. Look at Steve Kornacki. How are you? You're not wearing a Merrimack College shirt. I don't even know what to do today. What's going on?
You know, it's a little chilly in this office, and I was about to put it on, and I said, Louie always gives me a hard time for putting it on, so here we go.
We love Merrimack College around here. What are you talking about? Oh, man. Well, thanks for joining us, man. You've been a busy guy with horse racing this spring. How was Ascot, man? How was Royal Ascot?
Oh, man, it's great. I mean, I look forward to that. They call it a work trip, technically. You know, we do it for NBC, but, you know, that would be a vacation if I didn't have to go for work. So, no, it's fantastic. Always great to be over there. Had a nice hit there 2 years ago. Didn't replicate that, unfortunately, but everything else was great.
Yeah, you got little bookmakers. Steve always chase down the bookmakers on NBC. One of my favorite horse racing segments of the year. How many days have you already been to Saratoga? This is always my question for Steve.
Yeah, I haven't gone up yet. Thinking about doing it this weekend, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't, technically they were up there last weekend, but my mind wasn't in Saratoga yet. I think this is the week it really kind of kicks in.
Thursday's the starting point. Remember, the meet hasn't started yet technically, even though we were just
this was the Bass as opposed to the back. This
is the little test
Belmont
run.
at Aqueduct, and then the Belmont at Saratoga, the Bazaar or something, whatever they're calling it these days. But yes, we're going to do some mid-season Eclipse Awards with fellow Eclipse voters, Steve Kornacki. This will be Sean's first year voting in the Eclipse Awards.
I did.
Did you vote last year?
Yeah.
When did you get in?
In November.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Breeders' Cup, not at okay. So second voting.
So I've got 1 year under my belt.
Steve and I do an Eclipse end of year episode. I think we've done 2 in a row now at this point. Steve is like me and spends way too much time on this. Yes.
Hey, it's an honor to get to do it. So there's no such thing as too much time, you know?
Yeah, I largely agree with Steve there. So let's go ahead and go through our list of mid-season Eclipse Awards. We'll start with the 3-year-old males here, just to make it kind of easy. But the obvious candidates, and here, Sovereignty, the winner of the Derby and the Belmont. Journalism, who ran in all 3. If you wanted to,
and won the Preakness. Don't forget that.
Of course, yes. Maybe a horse like Zulu Kingdom, who's been winning a lot of different graded stakes. We will let our guest go first here. Steve, are you going to be boring? Because you should be.
You have to be. I just don't see how you can't say Sovereignty. I don't know. Am I allowed to give the one I'm curious about for the second half of the year?
Sure, go for it.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys talked about this before I came on, but Magnitude coming out of that, that Prairie Meadows race maybe could make this division a little more interesting in the second half than it already is.
Yeah, we were just saying, Steve, a horse like that might have been a retirement just even a few years ago. The fact that he's already back racing and running at a high level as well, I think is a real good sign for things to come. But Sovereignty on top for Steve Kornacki. What says Sean Collins?
I think you have to really weigh all the different horses, and yeah, it's Sovereignty. Yeah. I mean, you win 2/3 of the Triple Crown. I feel like at this point you could probably ship him the Eclipse Award no matter what happens the rest of the year. I think, for the 3-year-old colts, winning multiple Triple Crown races, I feel like those are the 3 races everybody points toward. Yeah, maybe somebody like Magnitude pops up, wins the Travers, wins the Breeders' Cup Classic against Sovereignty, but I still, in my mind, for a 3-year-old award, winning 2/3 of the Triple Crown's enough for me. So, and for a mid-season award, which is what we're doing right now, I mean, you can't argue that he would be unanimous here.
Yeah, that part, mid-season award, I'm definitely going Sovereignty as well. Steve mentioned a 3-year-old they're watching moving forward, and I think it's actually still journalism. And here's why. I think he's going to go to the Haskell. He keeps working like he's in totally fine shape, which he is.
They keep saying Jim Dandy for him, and I'm like, go to the Haskell. Get the grade 1. Get the grade 1.
Get another grade 1.
Yeah.
Frankly, right? A third grade 1. And then I think he could go to the Pacific Classic. And I think he's made for the Pacific Classic, that shorter stretch at Del Mar, Steve. I think journalism, it could set up that he ends up, instead of going to, say, a Pennsylvania Derby, go Haskell, go big, go to the Pacific Classic. I had big cap in my head for some reason. Go to the Pacific Classic, Steve. Could journalism steal this thing if he were to do a route like that?
Yeah, and I mean, wouldn't you want to do that too with the Breeders' Cup? Kind of sets up nicely, with what would come after that. And yeah, Sovereignty is the obvious mid-season choice and the clear favorite, heavy favorite for the award at the end of the year. But I'm still open to finding somebody else, for this. And journalism, there it is. Look, if journalism could do a Haskell Pacific Classic, get a rematch in the Classics, and I think that'd probably be enough for me if you told me right now that happened. So I'm still open to something there. Maybe that's just the bitterness of Sovereignty skipping the Preakness that's coming out. But
do you think that could play a role potentially if we see journalism do that path? Do you think that could play a role in the way some people vote? The fact that Sovereignty skipped the Preakness, journalism ran in all three, and then had a good second half of the year.
I wonder about that, because I definitely picked up on that. It seemed to me going into the Belmont, just from a sentimental standpoint, where people seem to be on that. And I don't know, you may be able to make it, if it ever came to it, as one of those tiebreaker kind of scenarios there, a horse, who they were willing to run in all three, and put out there like that. I mean, there is something to be said for running in all three, running well in all three. As opposed to skipping one of them if it's sort of a 50-50 scenario.
We've seen weirder things in votes than that, for sure.
Yes,
way weirder things than people holding that grudge and protecting the Preakness in their minds, at least. Steve Kornacki from NBC with us. He's Sean. I'm Louie. BloodHorse Monday. We're doing our Mid-Season Eclipse Awards. We move over to the Philly side of things on the 3-year-olds here. Obviously, Good Cheer, your winner in the Kentucky Oaks. We get Lucara getting a little bit of redemption in the Acorn up in New York. We think of those two races as the big Philly races in the spring. But frankly, with how well Nitrogen's been running, I expect her to get a lot of votes this year, Sean. Who did you land on top here for 3-year-old Philly at the mid-season mark?
I'm still going to end up on Good Cheer at the mid-season mark. I know technically she's got one grade 1 win this year compared to Lucara's 2.
Yeah.
But with the dominance that she displayed throughout the entire winter versus, Lucara had, she won her first start, lost her second start, then won the Ashland. I just think the dominance that Good Cheer displayed throughout the winter, in addition to winning the biggest race for 3-year-old fillies, the Kentucky Oaks, I will excuse her poor performance in the Acorn for the mid-season Eclipse Awards. We'll see what happens by the end of the year. But at the mid-season point, I don't think it's much of an argument that Good Cheer is the best in this division at this point.
How about for you, Steve?
I was thinking about this. You'd reached out to me on Friday, and I was all set to give you Nitrogen here, and I still really want to. I don't think she lost anything.
By a nose.
Yeah. I don't think she lost anything. She was wide on both turns there. She's shown a little versatility, with that, with the off the turf, performance, whatever you want to, make of that. Good Cheer is one of those horses. The accomplishments are there. The resume's there. Every time I look at those speed figures, maybe I'm sure I'm putting too much on that, but I keep waiting for them to come back higher. And, that Acorn looks bad, and, Lucara was able to beat her. I don't know. I almost, in my mind, I almost want to go Nitrogen, Lucara, Good Cheer right now. But right now, I still want to stick with Nitrogen. No grade 1s yet, but I think some good stuff's coming in the second half, and some great stuff's already happened.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with either of those top two at all. If someone came to me with those arguments, I'll go Good Cheer at this point. But I expect Nitrogen to be the 3-year-old filly of the year by the time we get to the end, because I think she's going to keep running. I'm not at all sure that we'll see Good Cheer at a high level again this year.
Interesting.
And so I think that those days might be petering out. It might be something that where we've seen the best of her, and that's that. Lucara, though, I am fascinated by, because she brings an honest effort every single time. I think she's going to be really, really good the second half of the year. And how she looked in the Acorn made Good Cheer's Kentucky Oaks even better. Yeah, she dominated that race. She was easily the best runner on that Friday here in Kentucky. And so I'll give Good Cheer the nod right now. Nitrogen would be second for me, no question. And it would be very close. And what Steve said about her race this last weekend, it didn't change a thing about how I perceive her. I think she's excellent, and clearly the class of the 3-year-old filly on the turf crop for sure.
Yes, definitely. All right, 2 votes, good cheer, 1 for nitrogen.
All right, there you go. Steve different again. He's Steve Kornacki, NBC Sports. Older dirt male is a fun one because we actually got a bunch of really good horses this year. I think the choice for me was easy, but when I started to look at the resumes of other horses that we call this the handicap division, Louie. When we look at this division, I was so pleased at how good the resumes were for so many horses. I landed on Mindframe, and I think that one for me is not difficult. I think he won what has turned out to be the race of the year to this point, which is the Grade 1 Churchill Downs, with Nisos coming out and winning, Bookham Dano coming out and winning, Banishing in that race, etc. To me, that is the race of the year to this point. He comes back after winning at 7 furlongs and wins at 9 in the Grade 1 Stephen Foster. Give me Mindframe right now as the top older dirt male, Steve. And I'll mention him again later for another award. I think it's that impressive, frankly, because I do think that much of the older dirt group this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree right now. If I'm casting my ballot, that's where you have to go. Just the combination of those 2 wins. But that said, I think Fierceness is the better horse. Okay. And I think my issue there is, I guess it's the prestige. There's probably some breeding aspect too that made them want the Met Mile. But the Met Mile, I don't think really fits who Fierceness is. And I think if they've been, if they'd gone a different direction, we might right now be saying, Fierceness just won the Stephen Foster and is the clear, leader there. So I kind of think Fierceness is the best, but if you got to go by the accomplishments, it's Mindframe right now.
Yeah, we're gonna make it a clean sweep for Mindframe here.
Okay.
Grade 1 wins at 7 furlongs and at 1 mile and an eighth against, probably the best grouping of sprinters that we have, and then a pretty solid grouping of the older horse division.
The Grade 1 of Grade 1 since Stephen Foster.
Yeah, with Sierra Leone, First Mission, Mystic Dan, and Hit Show in there. He's beaten the best of both divisions.
Right.
And so far, and so I just don't think that. And on top of that, he also has the Grade 2 win earlier in the year as well, the Gulfstream Park Mile. So all 3 of those combined together, he's got to be the pick for the mid-season older male.
For in case people don't know, when we get our Eclipse ballots, we are asked to vote for the top 3 in each category. Steve, would Fierceness be a close second for you right now?
Yeah, Fierceness would be my number 2 right now.
Number 2 for you?
No, because right now he has a Grade 2 win and a runner-up and a Grade 1. I would have. I agree with Steve. I think Fierceness is the best horse in the older horse division currently. But if we were,
is Raging Thorn ahead of him?
I would put him there right now, just because he beat him in the Met Mile. I don't know if he would officially be my second ranked horse. I'd have to really kind of sit and think about it. But looking at these awards, it's not necessarily who I think is the best in the division. It's who's done the most so far. And Fierceness is a Grade 2 win, was against was a track record, and Locked was in that field. But we've seen Locked has not really been the same.
Didn't show up this last weekend, yeah.
And so I don't know who I would have at number 2 right now, but I don't think I would have Fierceness there, because now give me a month till the Whitney and then boom, he's probably my number 1 in this division. But right now, I don't know if I could have him at number 2.
All right, there you go. All right, we move over to older dirt female. In this one, last year's winner. You remember last year's winner? Actually, I'll go ahead and throw it that way. Okay, it was Idiomatic. Yep. She still got it. She didn't run to the distaff, so I was hoping maybe people had forgotten about her. I think I voted.
You want people to forget about it?
No, it would be funny on this show. I think I voted for Adair Manor last year.
Why?
Because I really loved her resume.
All right.
All right. So this year, she's older. Her name is Torpedo Anna. She's available in this one, Sean. But certainly, you could make the case for Copian, who I think had one of the great shows in that Derby City distaff as well.
Yeah, and you lost your case for Copian potentially just a couple days ago.
I'm with you.
No, I think number 1 still is Torpedo Anna. Had Raging Sea won the Ogden Phipps, she'd be the Mid-Season Eclipse Award winner. But even with the La Troyenne defeat that Torpedo Anna had, she has the Azeri win, she has the Apple Blossom and the Florida Lee. Those are not
Grade 2, Grade 1, Grade 2.
Yeah, yep. Even though the Florida Lee is a Grade 2, I mean that's still. The Florida Lee is still
it's a very prestigious summer race.
Yeah, so I gotta put her in that number 1 spot until somebody comes in and starts knocking her down repeatedly. She's the class of this division.
Torpedo Ann for Sean. What's that, Steve?
Yeah, you have to do the same just based on the, I don't want to. This is like, when you go to go to the voting booth on election day and hold your nose or something, for some candidate. And it's a little frustrating, right? In some of
Never
these,
had to do that, Steve. How bizarre.
some of these races, it just feels like, I feel she's vulnerable, but
Yeah.
nobody's ever lined up who can actually beat her. These, small fields, and she kind of overwhelms, underwhelming competition. And yeah, Kopian, I didn't, that loss over the weekend, I don't hold much against her in that, and if she'd won that, I might be sitting here giving you her as my number one right now.
I think if she beat Sweet Azteca this last weekend, I might be doing that.
Yeah,
I really did think that.
I wouldn't be. I would still have Torpedo.
Yeah, and I understand both. And I'm Torpedo Anna officially for my vote here. I agree. I would have Kopian in the second spot there. Moving forward, though, who do we expect to be in the top spot by the end of this one? This one's fascinating to me because I do think, like Steve said, many of us, and maybe Sean's not in this group, do consider her vulnerable in Torpedo Anna. Like, people can line up and beat her. I don't want to say any day, but that a good performance. We saw it with Raging Sea already, of course. Someone can line up and beat her head to head. Is it a Raging Sea? Could a Kopian make a rebound? Is Sweet Azteca actually set up to dominate the second half of the weekend in Southern California? I don't know, but is there someone that stands out to you?
No, I think she's going to carry the division.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they learned something from the La Tran, and Brian's going to make sure she's not in the spot where that can happen again.
That's right. Yeah.
And I think because they're waiting till the personal ensign, I believe, for their next start, and then they're going to Spinaway, and then we'll see what happens with their Breeders' Cup choice, whether she jumps in against the boys in the Classic or stays in the distaff. But I think those are two spots where the personal ensign will get a lot of the New York horses. I feel like the Spinster is another one of these spots, like Steve mentioned, where people are going to be afraid to line up against her in that race, and it could just be kind of a cakewalk for her in that spot. So I think she's going to end up kind of taking this.
I think you're right. She's also good at Saratoga.
Yes.
Right. And those are the races that we always look to, Steve, as, oh, hey, she won this race or she won this race. And they tend to be this time of year, at least, Steve, at Saratoga.
Yeah, and I tend to agree, though, that if she's going to get beat again and she's going to get her toughest challenge, I think it's going to come from Chad Brown, and it's going to be in New York. So, let's see if he can, get some kind of, I don't know, you have a randomized, set it up for Raging Sea, something like that again. And then, yeah, I don't know. I saw McPeak mention going into the Classic. Do you take that? Is he just talking? You don't think he's actually going to do that?
I don't know. The Classic division right now, I would say no, please don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love it. It would be so much fun to have her involved with this group as well.
Is it fun? Is that fun?
I think so.
Okay.
I think that's great. Best against the best.
Does that make me not fun that I'm like, no, just run her against females?
It makes you very boring.
What do you?
Let's just throw her in the Breeders' Cup turf. Why not?
It takes one to know one there. Yeah, next can run anywhere. All right, let's keep it rolling. Steve Kornacki from NBC with us here on BloodHorse Monday. Sean Collins, Louie hanging out with you. We go to Turf Mail for the next one. And I think we can finally find these categories where we might disagree on these things, Sean. I will go first, and I will make the case for Spirit of St. Louis, who earlier in the year did win the Pegasus World Cup Invitational and then turned around and won a second Grade 1 in the Turf Classic at Churchill Downs. I think those two wins to this point is the best resume of any turf male in North America. So I will go with Spirit of St. Louis, and it's not a pick because it's my name, but rather because I think the two Grade 1s are as good as we've had. Steve, do you have here a turf male?
Gosh, I want to give you the disagreement you're looking for, but that's exactly who I'd be.
Okay.
That's exactly where I'd be right now. If you're looking for the one that I kind of got my eye on for this summer as the year progresses, Deterministic, the Clement horse we just saw in the Manhattan. I think might be interesting in that division too, but I think Spirit of St. Louis has done the most, even in defeat at the fairgrounds. It wasn't all that bad that day either.
You made your statement of disagreeing a little too early. You were probably a category too early. It's going to be a clean sweep here for Spirit of St. Louis. I think in the first half of the year, there are 3 races that you want to win for the older turf horses: the Pegasus, the Turf Classic at Churchill, and then the Manhattan. He won 2 of the 3.
Yep.
So right there, I think he's got to be the choice for sure.
Is there another even in the group for you guys? Because that was one of the easier ones for me to come up with.
You're just always waiting for integration to put it together, but it just never happens, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Steve's right. Yeah, there we go. All right, Turf Female will be up next. Sean, I'll let you go first here. Could we disagree? Find out next. What do you say, Sean Collins?
Yes, I'm going with She Feels Pretty.
Oh, what a terrible choice. All right, keep going. Tell us why.
I'm going with her as my choice for the Mid-Season Eclipse Award here. Grade 1 and Grade 2 win to start the year. She's looked visually impressive in both. Even though the Grade 2 win was a Grade 2 and not a Grade 1, she beat Give Me Another in that race in the Modesty at Churchill. Give Me Another champion down in South Africa, and she had a bad run on the wet turf last time out, but her first 2 starts here in the U.S. were pretty good, even though she'd been defeated. And I think I do think she's going to be we're going to find out what happens this weekend. She's going to be against a tough field in the Diana, what she's going to look like for the rest of the year. But I think between her win on the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival and her win on Kentucky Derby weekend, I just think those 2 victories just outclass anything else that the Philly Turf Division has produced.
All right, that was a pretty choice there, Steve. What say you?
Yeah, by the way, I just thought of one on the that I forgot to mention on the mail, but we haven't even seen Johannes.
Right, I know.
Yeah,
I voted for him last year. Yeah,
yep, so did I.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe that could be interesting. On the female, yeah, no, I mean She Feels Pretty, but what I wrote down here was winner of Diana. So we got a great setup, I think, with all the logical contenders meeting this weekend. So let's see.
I went with dynamic pricing here. Look,
we'll get to see the 2 of these face off.
And look, you talk about races that you look for, early in the year, and frankly, the Just a Game is one of those for me. And so she wins the Just a Game. Before that, won the Beaugay. Both of those in New York, and I get it. We're going to have to see her travel a little bit as the rest of the year goes on. But frankly, to this point, I think those 2 are good enough wins for me to make her my mid-season vote. But I don't hate and I know the Beaugay is a Grade 3 if that's what you're about to do.
Yes. Oh, okay. I was going to say, because I did consider this. I consider the Just a Game and the New York to be kind of the same level for me. Okay. And so the difference maker.
But the Beaugay being a level below.
I thought the Beaugay is a level below the Modesty. That was my difference maker between these 2.
I think that's a Chad Brown move to get her a win on her off the layoff, essentially.
Well, getting a win off a layoff doesn't equal an Eclipse Award.
And then she wins a Grade 1. She's about to win another one. How about that? All right. Moving forward with this group, is there a horse that we are looking forward to? For example, is it dynamic pricing? Could she be the one that jumps up that isn't your mid-season pick?
Yeah, there could definitely be somebody that jumps up the second half of the year. To be honest, I don't really know who it would be. I think it would be one of these 2, either dynamic pricing or whether. Like yes. Now, we have to always keep in mind that even we can have different opinions of whether or not they deserve it, but ultimately whoever wins the Breeders' Cup from Europe in the Filly and Mare division is going to end up taking this award at the end of the year. Sure. But I think from the U.S. perspective, I think so far She Feels Pretty and dynamic pricing do look like the class of this division. Maybe you have I know Choicia won the Jenny Wiley at Keeneland. Yeah. If she sticks around the U.S. through the year, maybe she could be a player in this division as well, but I think those are kind of the top 2 right now.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Steve Kornacki from NBC joining us here for our first attempt at the Mid-Season Eclipse Awards on the BloodHorse Monday. Easy for me to say.
I know you already forgot. We're so deep into this, you forgot what the name of the show was.
Let's go to Sprinter here. And on the male side of things, I think Raging Torrent's going to get a lot of votes here, but of course, also coming out of that Churchill Downs here, that Grade 1 on Derby Day, we got Nisos, we got Bookham Dano as well. I'll stick to Raging Torrent. I try not to overemphasize foreign races in the Eclipse Awards, but I will use them to supplement resumes. Does that make sense? So in other words, I think the Met Wild win is as good a one-ish turn win as anyone's had this year. And I think coming off the Arabian Peninsula win as well, I think is a good enough reason for me to put Raging Torrent as the top sprinter, young Sean.
I am very completely in disagreement with your choice.
Finally, the show gets better.
Go ahead. So you're picking Raging Torrent for mid-season champion sprinter. He hasn't run a sprint in the U.S. yet.
That's fair.
That Met Mile win, you can't count it. It's a mile. It's not a sprint.
Okay, fair enough. Keep going.
Yeah. So that's my opinion on that one. Yep. I do not count anything that's international.
Okay.
When I do these votes, so he's not even in consideration for me for this at all. I know you also like Nisos a lot in this spot. He was second in the Grade 1 at Churchill. I don't really think the field was that good that he beat out in California. So I don't think I could pick him off of that. Mind Frame, 1 sprint, even though it was against a good field. I don't feel comfortable picking him off of just 1 sprint to win this award. So I went to the turf for this award. And I'm picking Think Big from Godolphin 3 graded stakes wins, 2 of them sprinting on the turf. I think he's looked as good. I think he had a rough trip in the Jaipur. I'm going with him as my pick for champion sprinter at the mid-season point, even though he doesn't have a grade 1 yet on the resume.
Okay. All right. Steve, how about for you?
I went Bookham Dano on this one, off that off his win. And then, I'm blanking. Thank you. Raging, I had the same issue though. I gave a lot of thought to Raging Torrent, and I kind of, he's in that kind of awful in between place, right, where he's not great at the pure sprint, and he's not a distance horse, and the Met Mile suited him perfectly, it seemed, right. Now, so what do you do with a horse like that? I'm thinking ahead to the second half of the season in the Breeders' Cup, right? They tried the sprint last year. That didn't work. You could try the dirt mile. You got the win and you're in for that, but now that's going to be a 2-turn mile. So I don't know I don't know how to place him. I don't quite know how to categorize him. I agree. I don't think of his accomplishments as really as the clear sprint leader right now. He's not a distance horse, and I don't see how he could step to the top here either with what's ahead of him this year.
All right.
Give you a defense for your choice. You've now heard 2 of us rip it apart.
Do you think there's and be realistic with me? Do you think there's a chance that a turf sprinter could win this award?
If Cogburn didn't win it last year,
that's my point.
Yeah,
I voted for him.
Yeah, I voted for Cogburn too.
I didn't even look at the turf sprinters because I think it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
That would be my rebuttal. I think you wasted your time with that argument.
Well, we'll see what happens the rest of it. Now, as far as looking ahead towards the rest of the year, if Nisos, if Bookham Dano end up winning a couple, I think one of them will come away with the award. If
by the way, I think you're right, but I think you wasted your time. That's kind of my point. I think we need to change how we vote on.
Well, this is the Mid-Season Eclipse Awards, so he's the only. I think Big to me is the only one that really fits. I do really like Bookham Dano. It's just one of his 2 wins is a race that was pretty much crafted specifically for him in Virginia. So I don't know if I could really give that much credit, but he did win against a good field in the True North. So that's a good pick from Steve as well. But I've been a big fan of Think Big so far this entire year. He had the win on the Derby undercard, the kind of the big turf sprint for that first half of the year. So I had to give him the nod here.
Awesome. All right, rolling along. Female sprinter on these things. I'm going Copian. I'm sure that's just a bailout, but Steve, do you have a different horse than Copian here?
I mean, no, it's Copian right now with some other contenders though. Let's see, Ways and Means obviously, and loves Saratoga. So here comes the season for Ways and Means, and then how about we haven't seen much of Too Sharp. That's who I'm a little curious about for the second half of the season.
We're not going to see her for a little bit. Sounds like So last I talked to Phil Bauer, she's relaxing on the farm, having another little vacation. So
that's right.
So I'm not curious anymore.
Curiosity killed. That's all right. How about
I was very curious about her too. I thought if she could have stayed healthy for this entire year, I thought she was going to run the division.
We got spoiled in this division, the Goodnight Olives of the world. I mean, we got spoiled for a couple of years in this division, and Copian and Sweet Azteca certainly put on a good show over the weekend as well. So hopefully that'll keep going. Who'd you end up with mid-season here?
I picked Copian for mid-season, even with the loss a couple days ago. I just think the 2 big filly mare sprint races in the spring are the Madison and the Derby City Distaff. Positano Sunset upset the Madison and then was easily handled in the Derby City Distaff. I just think in general, I think the Derby City Distaff is kind of the top spot. We saw the West. Sometimes, if it was just her record out in California, the way California racing is right now, I sometimes see that as a little suspect, but the fact that she shipped east, she beat everybody from the East Coast in that race, and then the kind of her main rival at that point in time in California ran second in that race, I think really kind of flattered the strength of the female sprinters out there in California. So I think she's even with that defeat this past weekend, I thought that was a weird trip with being hung wide that entire way by Sweet Azteca. I think she's the number 1 still at this point.
Very good year for California racing at the very top with journalism, with her, with Sweet Azteca, etc. Very, very good. Top end folks. And hopefully Johannes rejoins that group Steve mentioned earlier, would certainly round out the different surfaces and distances, etc. 2-year-old, let's go to the juvies at this point. Not a lot of data here, Steve, so I'm sure you were digging around. I'll let Sean go first here. I'll have Sean go first on the female side because I know you feel very strongly about that one. Mm-hmm. So, Steve, who'd you land on 2-year-old male to this point?
Saturdays. Actually, I saw 2 on Saturday at Saratoga. Maybe a little bit of Saratoga bias here, but Obliteration winning the Sanford and absolutely living up to the name. And then in the first race of the day, they had that maiden special for 2-year-olds, and Ewing, from DJ Stable, West. I got the West Point shirt on here, so I'm contractually obligated to say this. But Ewing going out there and putting up an 88 buyer, didn't beat much, but big expectations there, and nothing looked wrong in that debut.
Yeah, really, really good stuff. I went with the race that seems to give us stakes winner after stakes winner. That's the Bashford Mare. I'll take Romeo as the top 2-year-old to this point in this year. Frankly, not a lot of stakes data to go on at this point. But
by the way, feel free, if you have a little extra cash, Romeo got supplemented into the Fasig-Tipton sale tomorrow. So go take that money over to Fasig-Tipton and buy yourself a Mid-Season Eclipse Award.
You would need to have
winner.
like Kornacki money to do that. I can just
well,
money.
Steve,
Come on, Steve, get on. Could you imagine Steve just walks into the Fasig-Tipton sale? I heard on this podcast that there's a horse for sale here. Who'd you land on 2-year-old?
Well, it was interesting. So coming into today, I wasn't sure if we were going to put a firm line on July 1st or not as kind of the mid-season point, or if we were going to count this past weekend. I would have picked Romeo if we were not counting this past weekend, just because he won. I think not counting the Sanford this past weekend, if we stopped at July 1st, I think the two big races for 2-year-olds are the Tremont during the Belmont Stakes Racing Festival and then the Bashford Manor on closing weekend at Churchill. He was third against the Philly in the first one, comes back, runs stronger in the second one and wins it. I would have picked him, but Obliteration was just so impressive and getting the grade 3 win. If we extend into this past weekend, I'd have to vote Obliteration as the champion 2-year-old.
Obliteration 2, Romeo 1. Romeo loses again. All right. I read to the end of that play. How about that? Everybody loses. And then 2-year-old female. I know you feel strongly about this one, Sean, so I'll throw to you.
Yeah, it's got to be Mythical. Coming off that win against the boys in the Tremont. She looked impressive doing it. I remember I was standing right there on the rail as she went by me, easily schooling the boys. So Gotta go with that so far at this point.
I'm not going to fight you at all, Steve.
I don't want to, but I want to give a shout out to a horse I actually made some money on, and that was Percy's Bar winning the debutante, and two performances just pouring it on in the stretch so far.
I'm not going to pretend that I have any idea who's going to win the 2-year-old Eclipse Award at this point. I'm not going to pretend.
Pick a trainer. Who trains them? Who trains the winner?
Chad Brown.
On both sides, or the male and the female side?
He changed one of them.
Okay. Steve, pick the other one.
I'm waiting for the next battle.
It's going to be Cox at some point, right? Like I assume that'll reveal itself as the year goes on.
Breeders' Cup's at Del Mar. I don't think betting on Baffert would be a bad idea. I think that would probably be a safe bet.
Bafferts. Yeah. I also am waiting on the Baffert. So Mythical wins there. Let's move into the people. And let's talk owner. I'm a little off the board here, Steve. I'll let you go first because I know how this is going to end at the end of the year, but I'm going to go with a different owner at the halfway point than how this is going to end at the year, Steve. So who do you have?
Oh, I want to hear yours because mine is just bloodless and just it's like the Torpedo Anna. I don't want to say Godolphin, but when you got the Derby and the Oaks, what do you do? But who do you have?
But before Louie gives his pick, let me just also throw in that I picked Godolphin as well for the mid-season award.
I'm going Rapoli Stable. He's got, if I have Mindframe as horse of the year and I get Fierceness breaking the track record at Churchill Downs. If the two best horses in what I think of as the best division, then I'm going to give it to Rapoli Stable at this point. At the mid-season point, that guy is actually shipping his horses to big spots. I know they lose the Met Mile, but he put his horse up in the Met Mile. He sends Mindframe to a 7 furlonger before putting him in a 9 furlonger. No. That's great for the race. That's great for horse racing. I'll go Rapoli Stable at this point in the year. I get it. I get the Godolphin argument. I would not fight anyone on it, but I would go Rapoli Stable at this point. I think what they're doing with their horses, putting them in big spots, is as good as you can do for this sport. He could have wrapped Fierceness up, sent him to the training barn. They could have done that with all their horses. Did not do it. Brought back Mindframe as a 4-year-old. I love what they're doing. I'm big fan of those two horses. So I'm going to go Rapoli Stable at the midpoint.
I like that argument because he does have
Steve's face.
He does have. Yeah, if you're listening to us and not watching us, make sure you go check out YouTube or Spotify.
Oh no, listen. I don't want to fight anybody on behalf of Godolphin, so I like it.
I mean,
I wish I was as creative.
I mean, you have probably the two best horses in the country, or two of the best horses in the country right now. That's not a bad choice at all.
I also like owner wise. Like, I would love some kind of award for the Eclipse folks. like for running journalism on all three of
Yeah.
those races and sharing his workouts the way that they have, and like really going through that process, being open about what they're thinking, those sorts of things. Like I think there are a lot of good ownership stories this year.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them. And I think Aaron Wellman's one of those guys. And so I think there are a lot of good stories around owners this year, when usually we either get loud, obnoxious owners who are just screaming about nothing or we don't hear from them at all. And then we get a bunch in the middle this year. And I think, Eclipse stands out amongst those groups as well. Steve Kornacki, Sean Collins, Louie Rabaut hanging out with you. Mid-Season Eclipse Awards here on BloodHorse Monday. Let's go to Top Breeder. And we will go very quickly through this one because I'm not going to fight you on Godolphin.
Godolphin.
Thank you. Steve.
Godolphin, just motionless. And
let's go to Top Jock. I think this one could get pretty fun at this point. And so I put out the numbers on my own sheet for 4 different jockeys. Steve Kornacki, do you think you could guess who those 4 jockeys are?
Pratt.
Yes.
Irad.
Yes.
Jose Ortiz.
Yes.
And Alvarado.
Okay, it's not Junior. I have Luis Saez on my plate, believe it or not, as the 4 that I wrote down the stats for. But I Alvarado would probably be in the top 5 this year, almost certainly, for sure, because of Derby and other things. Plus, he was on this show, which definitely vaults him into the top 5 for sure. Yes, of course.
Well, in that case, it's him, Umberto,
Mike Smith, top 3, not even a question. It's exactly right. But Steve, who'd you land on for Top Jock here?
I went Pratt, and there may be this is recency bias. I just watching him over the weekend just reinforced in my head. I think he's the best out there right now. Has the 21 the graded wins, and just I think he's the best right now.
Yeah, Eclipse Award winner last year. We seem to, in the modern era, we get 2-3 year runs from those guys. I read obviously longer than that, but I think his number is really impressive this year as well.
I was really wanting to pick Jose Ortiz.
Okay.
And I was convincing myself to pick Jose Ortiz. And then just looking at the stats, I had to pick Pratt.
Okay.
At this point, he's at 21 graded stakes wins right now with 6, or excuse me, I had looked at this cutting off at July 1. So he had 18 graded stakes wins on July 1st. 16 of those 18 were with different horses, which is kind of the real thing that pushed me that way, is that he was able to win all those graded stakes races.
And all of his grade 1s are different horses, right?
Yeah. And his 5 grade 1s, I believe, all different horses as well.
Yeah.
So that was the ultimate thing that pushed me. Jose is currently ahead of both him and Irad in the wins department.
Yep.
And he's coming off big win at the meet at Churchill Downs. He's coming off the big fairgrounds meet that he had there. Flavian did just win the meet at Naira.
Great point by you, by the way. Jose won both riding titles.
Yes.
New Orleans and Churchill.
I did really want to pick Jose, but just looking at that 18 graded stakes wins with 16 different horses, 5 grade 1s with 5 different horses, I had to pick Pratt.
And the New York riding title means something too, right?
I don't
before that, by the way,
right now, honestly, I would say because
he gets less mounts than Irad does by a lot.
He does, yeah. So
to win that ahead of Irad, to me, is just the quality level of that is remarkable.
I think right now, the springtime, I think Churchill's jockey colony is better than the Naira colony right now. I think that'll shift obviously for Saratoga, but I think,
and frankly, a lot of those New York guys come down here for big days before Saratoga happens.
I think it's turning into. I mean, there's obviously a lot of great riders in New York, between Manny Franco, Junior Alvarado, Kendrick Carmouche, but it is, it's largely dominated by Irad. And then you come out here and you've got Jose, you've got Luis, we'll have Tyler Gaffleone jumping back in the mix. I do think most competitive jockey colony right now is in Kentucky.
I have Pratt on top as well. I gave Luis Saez an incredible look because I think he's riding as well as anyone in the country right now. I just think Pratt is riding as well and gets better mounts. Yeah, I think it's that simple. I think Luis Saez is on that level right now. I think he's in the top 4 or 5 jockeys.
He's always on that level if he can get a couple big horses down.
I think he's even better than he's been.
Yeah,
I think the move to Churchill has been really, really good for him, Steve. Who would you have after Pratt, do you think?
Jose Ortiz. I similar. I mean, I think he's having a kind of a standout year, but it's not quite at that level.
Yeah, we were bragging on him, Steve. I was saying this. I think we take for granted these guys moving their tack around, and Jose's I think got 3 young kids, something like that. And so moving from New York to Kentucky, but doing the Kentucky New Orleans thing, boy, just an incredibly smart and really effective career move for him. It's been really fun to watch, frankly. All right, let's move on to top trainer then at this point, and I think we'll get some agreement on this one as well, Sean. I'll let you go first here, but I You know what? Actually, we're not going to get agreement on this. Whenever withdrawn, Sean.
Okay.
Yeah, withdrawn rhymes
See?
with Sean. How about that? Go ahead and tell us why Brad Cox is trainer of the year to this point.
Well, I was leaning towards him again. Same thing with Jose Ortiz. I was going to pick him, and then as I kept looking,
Yeah, but Jose's never been on this show, so whatever.
Oh,
You
yeah.
can't do that. Yeah,
That's true. Yeah, so Brad gets the vote just for being on the show.
yeah, that's right. Darn right.
No, I think I was looking at it. I was going to pick him, but then as I kept looking, that same thing that got me with Pratt.
Yeah.
Brown has won 6 grade ones with 5 different horses. And so that pulls me a little bit more. He's had a little bit more success on both surfaces as well. I know Brad just got a grade 1 on the turf this weekend.
Yep.
So this could change as
a track
the year
record
goes. And a track record.
Yep.
This could change as the year goes, but I think I'd have to go with Chad Brown.
If Fionn does win, which sets the track record up there. Steve, who'd you land on for trainer to this point?
Oh, this is my outside the box. This is where I'm going to be different than everybody else. But I think there's no trainer we talked more about for better reason in the first half of the year, fortunately, than the man who just passed away. But I want to give the vote at the halfway mark to D. Wayne Lukas because of all that he meant, through all the years. And, he's my favorite. And, I know at the end of the year that won't be my vote, but right now it will be.
He's been on this show, so that's an acceptable answer from Steve Kornacki.
He's probably not going to win the trainer award, or obviously at the end of the year. But can they? How they do those special awards,
like the moment of the year and that kind of stuff?
Can they give one of those special awards to somebody who's passed away? Because I think that would be. I think there should be something at the end of the year to commemorate.
I'm trying to think if I've ever noticed that before.
Because I know they give out the special awards, but I'm not sure if they've ever given it to somebody who's no longer with us by the end of the year. But if they can do that, I would say they should definitely give something to Lukas at the end of the year.
Steve, I wanted to share this with you because I don't know if you saw the release from Churchill, but Cody Photography, who does the photography at Churchill Downs, is doing a D. Wayne Lukas special going forward. If you grab a kid and bring them into the winner circle, they'll print out the photo for you and for the kid for nothing going forward. And they're calling it the Lukas special. I think that's the good stuff right there.
And what a great contribution. Just a small thing that's actually, he was telling stories to the end about people 40 years earlier who would come up to him and say, you took me in when I was 8. Here's what I've done with my life. And yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's the good stuff for sure. All right, horse of the year. We wrap up with Steve Kornacki from NBC. Sean Collins.
Wait. We forgot the steeplechase horse of the year.
Oh. Well, Rontes for Apprentice Jock. Who you got? I got
Apprentice Jock.
Yeah, I'll go Wilford. I'll go West for mine.
I'm just gonna go with Irving Moncada because he's the only one I can think of right now. That's
is he still?
Yeah, he is until August, I think.
Oh, how about that?
Yep.
All right. I like it. Never mind. I like Irving. We'll go with Irving.
Steeplechase. Shout out to Abon winning the Iroquois.
Is that the one in Nashville?
Yes.
All right, that's good enough. All right. Yeah. All right. Horse of the year. I've given away mine. I'll go with Mindframe to this point. I think what he's accomplished in the grade 1 Churchill Downs, that grade 1, Stephen Foster, we all look forward to that race. It's as much hype for a non-Triple Crown race as I can remember, around here at least, in recent years. And he was just the best horse. And Sierra Leone did all of it. Sierra Leone looked like Sierra Leone. It didn't matter. And so I'll go Mindframe at this point. Obviously, we saw Nicelos come out. Bookham Dan will come out of that Churchill Downs as well and win their race. I'll go with Mindframe Steve at this point as my horse of the year at the Mid-Season Eclipse Awards. Who's your Mid-Season horse?
Yeah, no, it's the same logic when we talked about the older dirt male. It's Mindframe just based on the resume, just based on the accomplishments so far. I don't think when I try to project ahead, 5 months from now or so, that's where I'm going to end up voting. I still think, like I said, that fierceness will assert himself as the year goes forward. But so far, Mindframe's the one who has.
How about you?
Well, you justified why I should not pick Mindframe in your explanation as to why you picked Mindframe.
Okay.
You said the Churchill Downs Stakes has had as much hype as a non-Triple Crown race.
I did not say that. I said,
well, however you phrased it.
That Stephen Foster did around here.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Churchill.
I can't remember. I can't remember a midsummer race around here that got as much pub as the Stephen Foster.
Yes,
I
agree with that. But you know what gets more hype
winning
than a non-Triple Crown race?
Not going to Baltimore. Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, not going to Baltimore does pull me away a little bit. I think.
No, it doesn't.
I think Journalism is the second best horse in the country right now.
Oh.
I think Sovereignty is the best horse in the country.
Okay.
So winning the Kentucky Derby and the Belmont, beating who I think is the number 2 in the country in both races. Sovereignty is the horse of the year at this point. There are no bigger races to win than the Triple Crown races. He's won 2 out of 3 of them. We'll see what happens the second half of the year, but for the first half of the year, 2/3 of the Triple Crown as dominantly as he did against the competition that he faced. Sovereignty's the horse of the year.
Don't hate it. If they ran the Breeders' Cup Classic on July 31st at Del Mar, you would take Sovereignty.
Yes.
Okay. All
right. Well,
I would take Sierra Leone at this point. That's what's funny.
I mean, if I was looking at it from a pace scenario, I'd
Yeah.
take Journalism because of the short stretch. But
okay, I thought that last year that Sierra Leone just
well, yeah, but I think
care at all.
I do think Sovereignty and Journalism are going to, by the end of the year, at this point, I think with even as how good the older horse division is this year, I think Sovereignty and Journalism will beat the older horse.
I will say Sovereignty looks like an older horse, and Journalism trains like one.
Yes,
they both do. I think
they're going to run 1-2 in the Classic if they're both there.
God, I hope you're right. Steve, what say you? Who would win the Classic if we're at the end of this month?
Fierceness.
Okay, there you go. I like it. I like it a lot. All right, Steve, how was this exercise for you? Did you lose sleep? How did this go?
No, it's great. Unfortunately, one of the things I guess it kind of reinforces when you start looking through it is, gosh, they just don't run the.
Yeah. Oh. Did we lose Steve? All right. Looks like we lost Steve. There you go. Steve Kornacki, little technical issue to close there, but he makes a good point, which is how much of the Eclipse voting happens because of the second half of the year.
Yes.
And frankly, I think, unfortunately, Sean, so many people just look at the Breeders' Cup and go, there.
Yeah.
And I think that's, to me, it's a frustrating part of being a voter.
Yeah.
Is when I know people are just looking at the Breeders' Cup and not really going all the way through it. Let's bring Frank Angst in from BloodHorse and BloodHorse.com. He's our editor. He should be yours as well. How did you like the debate there? Any of those opinions that stood out as really terrible to you?
I mean, I was ready to jump in and back you on Raging Torrent.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate you. There you go, Frank. Get out of here.
For both of you, I don't understand the not counting overseas races. I mean, we're ranking the top U.S. trained horses, and if the trainer and owner think they want to travel the world and win a big race, you got to count it. So with Raging Torrent, I would actually list him as my horse of the year for the first half. Since it's the Midway Eclipse Awards, what are we calling it, guys?
Mid-season.
I'm going to fudge the rules a little bit and count the Malibu.
Okay.
Because it's 5 days before the new year.
Yep.
I don't do that in my actual Eclipse voting, but to me, the horse has put together 3 spectacular races, and he's beaten everybody. And the Met Mile was a terrific race till he won.
Yeah.
What went wrong with fierceness? I don't understand it. Let's celebrate the horse and went out there and won it.
Boy, I really agree with that last point, especially
Yes.
how often I have to hear, "Oh, this horse didn't shut up." No, one horse did show up, and his name is Raging Torrent. It's okay. That part is fine. Yeah.
No, I mean the big take home is nothing's decided yet, and there's terrific horses. I understand Sean's vote for horse of the year. I guess I would just say I've spent a lot of we've all spent a lot of time just talking about how good this handicap division is.
Right.
So I'm a little reluctant to take horses that have not raced in open conditions. They've only raced against their own age. They certainly look like terrific horses, along with a few other 3-year-olds. So we're very much looking forward to that. But in this little study, I wasn't prepared to take a 3-year-old who'd raced well, they've all pretty much just raced exclusively against 3-year-olds at this point. But I totally get it. I mean, I would. If Sovereignty showed up in a race tomorrow with these horses, he would clearly be a favorite or among the favorites.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think that's totally right. And
I get that.
Yeah,
the good news there is there's a lot of good horses and
a
lot of divisions up in the air.
Yes, that's it. When I was going through this, I was thinking, wow, we have a lot of really quality runners this year.
Well,
a lot.
Even some of these divisions that don't get as much attention a lot of the times, there's some really good horses in those divisions right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's been really exciting. All right, Frank, tell us what you're working on over at BloodHorse.com.
Well, it's of course, everyone's been saddened by the passing of Wayne Lukas, and we really wanted to celebrate his career in the magazine, obviously. So that'll be coming together in the August issue. Sean, are you able to share that cover? There it is. It's just a spectacular cover shot. Skip Dickstein got that photo about a year ago. So the whole issue is really filled with terrific photos from BloodHorse. I mean, that's one of our strengths is we have a vault that goes back literally more than 100 years. So we have, and for Wayne, doesn't go back quite that long, but quite a long way. So we have photos from throughout his career and several stories in the issue. The obit, we used some of Sean's reaction that he gathered for the website story and went back and researched. I mean, obviously, a lot has been written over the years about Wayne in BloodHorse publications. So we really took a deep dive there and just went over his entire career. Byron King's column looks back at Wayne's career. So a lot of good stuff in this issue that'll celebrate Wayne.
Yeah, that's really great. I'm seeing inside the jocks room at Del Mar. It is amazing how quickly we shift to the Saratoga Del Mar part of the summer. Plenty of our listeners are in Southern California. That looks like a cool piece too, Frank.
Yeah, it's a Jay Hubdy story, and he looks at Juan Hernandez is kind of the lead, and then he kind of goes into all the riders, terrific riders out there. I think we got a showing of that in this year's Triple Crown races. Some California horses did well. So, yeah, for sure. The really terrific story and long tradition of terrific riders in Southern California, of course. Yeah, thanks for putting that up. That there's if you're interested in getting that special issue, be sure to go ahead and subscribe today so we can get it out to you here in the next
and
few
that
weeks.
QR code on the bottom of the screen if you're watching us on YouTube or Spotify, or if you're listening to us, make sure you head to bloodhorse.com to subscribe to that magazine. You're going to want this Lukas issue, that's for sure.
Yeah, magazine tab at the top of the homepage, nice and easy to find there. Yeah, it stands out. I bring up that Jockey Colony just because, Juan stands out as the percentage rider, but we got Antonio Fraser as a first-time winner at Santa Anita this most recent meet. Umberto, obviously, 3 top 2 finishes with journalism in the Breeders' Cup, in the Triple Crown Series. I mean, it's been a very good year for those jockeys. We saw Juan show up here on Derby weekend, pick off a couple turf races. So, like you said, Frank, not just a long tradition. It's really good right now, too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so exciting stuff. Well, thank you, Frank. We'll be checking out the magazine, bloodhorse.com, tab at the top. If you happen to be listening, can't check it out right now, but QR code on Spotify and on YouTube. Thanks, Frank. Talk to you next week.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
There you go. Frank Angst with us from over there at the BloodHorse offices. Appreciate him for sure. All right. So little Mid-Season Eclipse Awards. Yeah. Horse of the year so far for Raging Torn. I like that.
I know.
Frank Angst. I like that.
He told me that at the office last weekend.
Oh, you knew already?
Yeah, I knew.
Oh,
I wasn't surprised, but I thought that was an interesting topic or an interesting choice. Yeah. I always view these as kind of North American awards. Now, I understand what he's saying about American trained horses going elsewhere.
Right.
If he had more than just the Met Mile win, I would maybe use that
stateside,
race in Dubai. Right? Yeah, stateside. Right. I would use that Dubai race maybe to kind of give him the edge. But like when I was giving my rebuttal to him earlier, that was in the sprint division. I just don't think he qualifies for the sprint award right now because his big win here in the U.S. was at a mile. But if you're going to use those 2 races to determine horse of the year, I couldn't argue with that. All
right. You are not going to be sitting next to me for a couple of months as you head to Saratoga.
Well, I mean, I'll see you at Haskell, not on this show, but I'll see you there.
Yeah. We're gonna do the show from the library again this year. You want to do that?
Yeah,
we should, right?
That library was
Tom's like, you know what? I'm sorry. You have to sit in the coolest horse racing library outside of BloodHorse. I was like, you know what? Maybe. Yeah. By the way, where is that Twitter page? Why hasn't anyone started the libraries of horse racing Twitter page? I would follow that today.
Well, why don't you start it?
I think it needs to be me.
Stop complaining about not.
You know what?
It
be part of Do Something Twitter, Louie. You know what? Why don't you just step out and be better? Oh man! All right. Well, Sean's off to Saratoga. Obviously, we'll have tons of sound and different interviews from up there throughout the summer. No pressure, and I'll obviously be here covering everything happening in the 2-year-old program at Ellis Park as well. We'll get into Kentucky Downs Preview Day when we get to that point as well. Obviously, shifting to Del Mar as we get into that time of year, almost certainly we'll watch some trainers who are trying to see if their horses are ready for that Breeders' Cup as part of this meeting, right? To see if they're, ready for the track, what have you, especially in that 2-year-old program as we start to move along, like you mentioned, hey, who's that trainer right now that's going to have that 2-year-old? I agree with you, by the way. We just because we haven't seen it doesn't mean Baffert's not sitting on 1 or 2 or 5. And that by the time we get to Del Mar that he won't be ready. I remember how disappointed he was Friday last year coming out of Del Mar, just going over on Juvenile Day. He was so disappointed. Or not on Juvenile Day, on 2 years ago at Santa Anita. I'm sorry, on Juvenile Day. Got the retribution this last year at Del Mar, obviously running 1-2 in the
1-2-3 or 1-2-4.
1-2-4 was it? Yeah, it was 1-2 for
Hill
sure.
Road
Yeah.
got up for third.
Oh, that's right, Hill Road. That's right. And so, yeah, we're just assuming that horse isn't around, and of course he is. So we'll see that when we get there as well. But for Sean Collins, I'm Louie Rabaut. We'll be heavy Saratoga, heavy Del Mar, and of course we'll be watching that 2-year-old program over there at at Ellis Park as well. Get in on the magazine QR code at the bottom of the screen as well. Well, Sean, safe travels, my friend.
Thank you.
I'll see you in a couple of weeks. I'm Louie Rabaut. This has been BloodHorse Monday.
The BloodHorse is dedicated to the improvement of thoroughbred breeding and racing for over 100 years. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and save BloodHorse Monday on all your platforms. For the latest news, analysis, and insights, visit us at bloodhorse.com.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.